Hello, Mr Anderson. If I could just turn your attention, there was an article in the Australian today by James Madden. Have you seen that article? There's plenty there that can be tabled about ABC staff leading false and misleading claims against News Corp in particular, other news organisations, following on from the coronation coverage and in the wake of Stan Grant's decision to step away. One of the many stories that was written endorsing this view was by The Guardian. And again, I can table that if you haven't seen it. But it mentions this number of 150 mentions of the ABC's coronation coverage and Stan Grant by the Australian Sky News in the 2 weeks since the broadcast. I'll give you that one. But what has come up now is a correction on The Guardian's website. It's there, but the article was amended on the 22nd of May 2023. An earlier version stated that the data about the number of mentions of the ABC's coronation coverage by the Australian and Sky News in the 2 weeks since the broadcast was obtained from media monitoring firm Stream. We wish to clarify that the information was not provided to The Guardian by Stream, but obtained from a third-party source. Mr Anderson, have you got any idea who that third-party source might be?
Senator, I will confirm with you on notice. I think we were contacted about that, and so I can't confirm whether it was us that supplied that information or how, for that matter, it was counted. I will confirm there were many stories around our coronation broadcast that were covered by many outlets, but including News Corp.
Yeah, I mean, it was a story. Will you be directing the presenters who, from the ABC, who continue to push this false claim and ask them to correct the record, as The Guardian's done?
Senator, look, if we've contacted again with regard to those numbers, then yes, absolutely, we can provide clarification on that. But again, I'll confirm that with you on notice. What I will say is that in amongst all of that reporting, there were inaccuracies in what was reported. And I think what we were keen to call out, and what I've called out, is that through commercial media, that when you see spikes in reporting about what the ABC does, particularly about ABC individuals, you then see a correlation to the spike of abuse that they receive via social media, not necessarily beyond what has been reported, but then people come out and it fans the flames of abuse that actually come towards our individuals. And I'll add that certainly my note to staff on the weekend last Sunday, I wanted to acknowledge that that is something that I acknowledge that is real. I am very concerned about staff at the ABC. There is absolutely zero tolerance for racism of any kind, and we want to be able to protect them, particularly from when these moments happen and people are coming after them as individuals. And I'll say that happens, I said commercial media. It also happens without commercial media's coverage of certain things. So, and I do see an increased prevalence of that, where people will just, on social media, abuse our staff. Very hard to stop. And so what I need to do is make sure that our staff are as protected as possible.
Okay. So, I mean, this has become a bit of a recurring theme as we see here at Estimates, that you assure us that the ABC and its staff affirms its charter to be unbiased and fair in its coverage, yet these sorts of comments by ABC presenters and the actions that they take don't seem to reflect that. So maybe you can update us on what you're doing to try and ensure that ABC staff do abide by the Charter of fair and unbiased reporting, and how, from a fact-checking perspective, the processes that are being looked at to ensure that particularly presenters that are on the taxpayer dime aren't misleading the public with these claims?
Senator, I would refute that to say that they are not, that we do have checks and balances. Our staff are required to adhere to an impartiality standard that is as part of our editorial policies. There is legislative obligation for us to be impartial in what we report. When there are instances where people complain, we now have, we've always, when it's been an editorial complaint, had a look at it and investigated. And yes, there are some breaches that happen from time to time where we're found to be in breach of it, but the vast majority of what we do, we're not in breach of our own standards, we're not in breach of impartiality. And as for the mechanisms and processes we have, apart from those investigations that happen off the back of complaints, we also run editorial training for staff with regard to their obligations for our editorial policies. That is something that happens. And if ever we've had a problem with something, we do use that as examples to staff about why that didn't meet our own standard at the time.
There's been some suggestion that some of that misinformation around numbers of mentions, etc., and this might be what you need to confirm, was actually being put up by the ABC Communications Unit, namely Sally Jackson and Nick Lays. Could you please confirm, or if you don't know already, take it on notice, whether or not the communications team was responsible for putting out those figures to The Guardian and other outlets that are incorrect?
I don't know for sure, so I'll come back to you on that.
Okay. I'll leave it there because we're going to come around again.